So if you follow me for a while and use Cobb series rods, you know they're awesome rods. I tried to make a good, tournament angler rod at a cheaper price, and it's the ones I use are the exact same ones y'all use. So there's nothing weird going on there. But so I was talking to Art the other day, and everybody knows, we're running out of my Miles rods. We're coming out with the Gen 2 here in the spring, and it's we don't have that many left in the existing rods for the Gen 1. And with that being said, I was talking to Ark, and we actually have a lot of one model made, and I think that's my fault for not letting y'all know what this rod's for. It's a rod I use all the time, and it's one of the few we still have left at Ark, and they're running a buy one, get one free sale on the website right now. So there's some left, but I think they're left not because they're a bad rod, but because of they're just not really knowing what you do with it, and that is my Good Vibes. This is a composite rod, which means it's not graphite just like the others, it's graphite fiberglass. And with that being said, this rod looks kind of funny. As you can tell, it's a big old rod. Any of you out there who haven't ever used this type of rod thinks that it looks like a flipping stick. It's a big old rod, but that is because it is part fiberglass. And when it comes to fiberglass rods like this Good Vibes, they are really, really good for what they're good at. But I'm not gonna say they're good for everything. They're good for what they're good at and really bad for what they're bad at. But what I like to use the Good Vibes for is open water baits, reaction baits is what it's for, open water reaction baits. So the Good Vibes, first I'll say when you don't want it, it's not a great target casting rod. It is not a rod you wanna try to use to skip a chatterbait on a dock. It's not a rod you wanna use to roll cast, around laydowns, things like that. It is not great for that because the nature of fiberglass is it's very, very mushy. It bends way down the rod to the reel. It's not that it's flimsy, but it's a softer treble hook style rod, but the whole rod is parabolic. But it makes it a little hard to cast, but that parabolic action that makes it a little difficult to cast around tight places is what makes the landing percentage so much better on it on certain baits. So when it comes to this rod, if you ever see me fishing, open water situations, like if I'm throwing a chatterbait in offshore grass, if I'm throwing the Z63 rattle bait, if I'm throwing it in offshore grass, if I'm throwing any square bills offshore, even if I said grass, but even if I'm offshore fishing like points or something like that, where I'm just making long casts covering a lot of water, if you see me doing that, I am always gonna be throwing the Good Vibes rod because the landing percentage is so much better. It feels a little soft, it feels a little mushy, but that is by design. With all those baits that I just mentioned, the reaction baits, your chatterbaits, your treble hook, your square bill crankbaits, your rattle traps, any rattle bait, anything like that, you wanna feel the bait vibrating, which you can do on this rod, but you don't necessarily wanna feel that fish get the bait too quickly, because if you do, it's easy to pull the bait away from them when you go to lean into them. You pull the bait out of their mouth. When they come up to jump with those treble hooks, the bait will fling out because the rod, with a graphite rod, a lot of times it just shakes loose. The rod's not soft enough, not forgiving enough to keep those fish hooked. So when it comes to the composite, it is. When they come up and jump, it shakes and your rod absorbs all that impact. When they eat the bait, when I've thrown a chatterbait on this rod, when I'm throwing it in that open water situation, most of the time, when they eat that chatterbait and I lean into them, when I get them to the boat, you can't hardly see the chatterbait because the rod tip and rod parabolic action allows that bait to really get in their mouth, and you still got enough backbone to set the hook. You can set the hook a little bit harder than you could with, say, a graphite rod, but you have to be really careful with treble hooks, especially on a graphite rod, because you'll pull it out because they're not really designed for it as much as a fiberglass. That's why, some of the great crankers that you've seen that love treble hook baits, David Fritz designed crankbait rods for years. They always, if they're not all fiberglass, they have some fiberglass to them because it's absorbing for those treble hook baits and lets the fish get it a lot better. But this Good Vibes rod, we actually have some of these left on the website. They'll be available, until we get the new ones in. And they're a great deal now. They're buy one, get one free. Everybody always asks me when we have buy one, get one free deals. Well, we do right now. There's not many left, except in this rod, we have a few. And I think that's my fault. I apologize for not ever, doing many videos on telling what this rod's for, because this is one I keep in my boat. It's not something I use on every lake I go to. It's not something I use every day, like I would say the do-all. But the situations where it excels, it really, really excels. It's great for those type baits. So check it out. There's still a few left, so get them while you can. And the Gen 2 will be out like we've done a video before, mid-spring. But you can get a great deal on these while they're still left.